Hey guys, I'm Mikkel Schmidt, and today we're gonna explore how to take a picture of this, edit it to look like this, then merge it with this so that we can get a result that looks like this. The first thing we need to do is plan when and where we're gonna shoot. So I have a bunch of apps for this. I use Clear Outside, and I use the iOS weather app. And then I use satellite images of the clouds over my area. Where I live, there's a shitload of clouds all the time. It's terrible for astrophotography. So sometimes you can check your apps and your satellite images and everything looks good. And then when you get to your actual location, you got like 5 minutes of clear skies, and then all the clouds come rolling in, basically. So that kind of sucks. But we're gonna try to plan it out. And then keep up with it and see if we can actually go out when we think we can. So this is what those apps look like. This is Clear Outside. This is a great app. With this you can actually see a couple days into the future. So predictions for what the clouds are going to be like. And they're separated into low cloud, medium cloud, and high cloud. The best thing would be zero clouds. Also, when you have your camera on a tripod, even though it's sturdy, high wind speeds are probably gonna be a bad thing. So right now this doesn't look too great. So you kind of have to plan out a couple of locations that you want to go to, like with a subject that you want to have in your foreground, or you can just shoot them at totally separate locations. You can do that too. That's not a problem. As long as you have a dark background so it can fade the stuff into it, it's gonna be fine. Anyway, we'll take a look at that. I'm just gonna, because it's terrible weather right now, so I'm just gonna find a spot that has clear skies, so I can actually take a picture of the Milky Way. And then we're gonna find a location afterwards for the foreground. So let's check the iOS weather app and see if that disagrees. Kinda does. It's not that detailed, so you can only see the entire day if it's in the future. If it's today, you can see it by hour, and most of the time I found that to be pretty correct, but predicting the future is kind of hard. And then I use satellite images like these you can see here. So I kind of scrub back and forth to check the movement of the clouds and kind of predict where they're going. That has helped me quite a few times actually. Give that a shot, pick your location, and let's check what gear we have to use. So the first thing you want is a sturdy tripod with a ball head, so that you can take portrait photos of the Milky Way if you need to. And maybe you need to do it for your foreground as well, depending on what kind of scene you're going for. So a ball head is always good. I only have a tripod with a fluid head because I'm still starting out. So I just got this cheap, newer tripod with a fluid head. It works all right, I guess. It's kind of stable. I guess it's fine actually. The fluid head is a little janky, but it's smooth enough. That's what I use, and it's fine. So yeah, let's go with that. Then you need to bring a headlamp, because you need something to make you look stupid. You can buy these at any hardware store or whatever. Just get like one that has different strengths and can tilt like this, and then you're pretty much set. So let's put it on and look like an idiot. Oh fuck, ow. So here you go. Oh god, this is so stupid. It has a bunch of different modes. You can like focus it, but this looks, let's not mention this, okay? But you can do this to focus it, then you can tilt it. Like that. Okay, totally fucking ridiculous. This is handy because you need to be able to see what you're doing, and you need both your hands free. So I recommend getting one of these. Good thing to have. So obviously you need to bring your camera. I'm using the GH5. I won't get into the whole full frame versus micro four thirds versus APS-C whatever sensor size bullshit debate. Use whatever works for you. Use what you have. I think your phone might give you some trouble, but you can easily use a micro four thirds camera, no problem at all. I'll show you. This is partly because the stacking process removes most of the noise, and actually the GH5 is not even that noisy anyway, so I don't see the problem actually. But I'm gonna bring my GH5, and the next thing we're gonna need is a fast wide lens. I use the Panasonic Leica DG Somilux 12mm f1.4 blah 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 blah. It's a great lens. It's an expensive lens, but I use a lot for video work and stuff too. So it's great for those things, and it's exceptionally awesome for astrophotography. It has very little chromatic aberration and almost zero distortion, but I think that's partly because it's corrected in camera, but that doesn't matter. It's an awesome lens, at least for the GH5, so if you have that, use it. It's pretty great. If you're on a Micro Four Thirds camera, I'd recommend getting a cheap Chinese speed booster and getting a Rokinon, I think it's the 24 1.4, 1.2, I think it's 1.4. Then you'll have basically what's equivalent to a 35mm, so you can do 15 seconds exposure following the 500 rule at around f0.95, and it'll cost you next to nothing compared to what I'm using. So yeah, take it or leave it. Next thing I'll bring is a lens cleaning kit, because when you're out there, if it starts to rain and your stuff gets wet, you have to clean it. Your lens might get foggy, you might have little drops of water on the lens element, the front element, and you need to be able to clean that off, because it won't always, but you can get unlucky and it'll ruin your shot, and that kind of sucks. So bring a lens cleaning kit. I just bought this cheap one on Amazon. I think it was like $7 or something, can't remember, but it's great. It does what it says on the tin, so that's what's important. So I'm bringing this. This goes for every shoot, but you need a fully charged battery. You're gonna make time lapses. Not actual time lapses, but you're gonna use the function to get a lot of sequential photos for stacking later. And if your battery runs out in the middle of a time lapse, you're gonna have more movement in the stars, which you want to avoid, because it'll be easier to align them if everything is just the same distance every time you skip a frame. So bring a fully charged battery. Optionally, you can get an additional flashlight. If your location has no light at all, which is, if you're gonna shoot both the foreground and the background at the same location, you need a place with as little light as possible. So what you can do is light paint. You can use your stupid headlamp for that, or you can use an additional flashlight to just paint it while you're doing your exposures. So I'll see you when the weather allows it, I guess. So bye. Okay, so remember how I said that weather can change in 30 minutes? Actually it did, and it's clear now. So I'm heading to my dark side. I'm heading to my dark site. My location, it's about 30 minutes from here. It's almost 1 a.m. And I gotta get up to work in the morning, so this is gonna be interesting, but let's get it done. Let's try it. I'll see you when we get there. Alright, so I'm finally here. It's pitch black. It's very windy though, but I have a full view of the stars, so I'll try to get set up. I'll try to get the tripod low to the ground so it doesn't shake. So yeah, hold on. It was extremely windy outside, so you couldn't hear anything other than the wind noise. So I'll try to explain what I was doing here. So as you can see, I have my tripod set up with a ball head on top of a fluid head, even though I'm going for a horizontal shot because my GH5 was already on the ball head and I lost my screwdriver. Anyway, what you want to do here is line up a shot and grab your focus. You can either do that by trying to focus on a bright star, or you can use your lame headlamp to light up something in the distance and focus on that. That's actually what I ended up doing, and it worked out great. As long as you hit your hyperfocal distance, you'll be fine. So after grabbing focus, I take a few test shots to make sure the Milky Way is in the center of the frame. For the best results, try to have it slightly to the left as the Earth rotates counterclockwise, so you want to counteract that movement slightly. Lastly, put your camera in time-lapse mode. Set it to a high number of pictures with an interval of a couple of seconds. I've had some issues with this function using long shutter speeds. No matter what I do, the camera will straight up skip a bunch of frames each time. It doesn't seem to include the exposure time in the interval either, so that's not the issue. Until this is fixed, just set it to 9,000 images with an interval of 2 to 5 seconds and calculate the amount of time you have to wait. We want around 30 images and we're doing a 20-second exposure. Adding in long shutter noise reduction, this will take 40 seconds for one frame. And then it will wait 5 seconds before starting the next exposure. 45 seconds in total. That means we have to wait 22 minutes and 30 seconds. To be on the safe side, we'll let it run for 30. So that's it, now we just have to wait. The reason we're using long shutter noise reduction is to get rid of hot pixels. Every camera has hot pixels and they don't move, so median stacking won't get rid of them. Once you're done, you can preview your time-lapse by going to display mode and clicking the icon in the bottom left, then choose sequential play from the first frame. This is handy to check if everything is okay before heading back home. As you can see here, this one went south real quick, so we wait until the clouds are gone and try again. I have my 35 exposures here. You can go with 30. 35 is a little overkill. I got lucky, so I'm just going with the 35 here. So the first thing we need to do is correct white balance. The way we can do this is by turning up the vibrance and saturation to 100, and then just pull on the slider a little bit here. You can see when we get over here, first it gets pink, then it gets yellow. We want to be somewhere in between blue and pink. In my case, I shot with incandescent white balance. You can do the same, just set it to something. Set it to something really, so that you have the same white balance for each shot, and then you can sync your settings afterwards. So I'm gonna use, I think we just around here looks pretty good. We want like the most even distribution of colors that we can get in the image. So I'm gonna go with this. I think I'm gonna adjust the tint a little bit. It's too green, obviously it's too pink. That could be good. I think we might go with 8, and that looks pretty good. And you can see down here we have a little bit of branches sticking out into the frame, so we're just gonna crop that off. There we go. And we can go reset our vibrance and saturation. You can see we have a pretty nice looking image right here. So now we need to fix the vignetting and the weird ramping that's going on over here. So the way I do this is by increasing the contrast to 100 and setting a strong contrast curve. You can see this is a lot more apparent now, and the same with the vignetting out here. So we're going to fix this first, and then we're going to fix the vignetting afterwards. So the way I fix this ramp is I use a linear gradient. So just apply this over here, something like this, and just bump up the exposure a little bit till it looks pretty much like the other side. This is fairly close, I think maybe a little bit more. I think that's pretty good. Let's keep that. Then let's fix the vignetting. You can use the navigator up here in the left hand side to check how far off you are. So let's go down to lens corrections and just pull on this, not that one, that's distortion, we don't want to mess with that. Vignetting, and this is making it darker, and this is brightening up the edges pretty much. So if you look up there, you can see this is obviously too much, but right around here is not too bad. I might have to adjust the midpoint a little bit. I think maybe this is good. There's still some kind of a little bit of a ramp going on here from the lower right corner. So I think I'm gonna do another linear gradient here. Something like this. That actually looks pretty good right there. I think I'm just gonna keep that. So there we go, now we have a pretty decent flat image. So let's reset the curve and the contrast. So now that we've fixed the lighting and we've reset the contrast, we can fix the chromatic aberration that you see here. It looks a little bad. We have some issues here, and some lenses will be worse than others, but this one is not too bad, but I'd still like to get rid of this. So let's just go down here. That brings me to another issue that I almost forgot. You need to turn off the color noise reduction, because it kills a lot of the color information in the image, which you want to retain for when you're doing the actual editing after you stack it. So let's just turn that off. There we go. You can see there's a little bit of noise in here now, but that's fine. We'll remove that with the stacking process. So let's go down to lens corrections. Take the picker and just see if you can find the blue color here and that'll make it go away completely. You can see here we have a little bit of, I don't know if this is a shooting star, a satellite, or whatever. See, we have some here too. These will all go away once we stack it. The stacking process will remove all the outliers in the image. So everything that's not the same between the images will get removed, which is another benefit of doing this, obviously. So I just noticed that it does seem a little green here in the corners. So I'm just gonna try the white balancing again here. I'm gonna go up with the vibrance, up with the saturation, and you can see this is too green, so obviously I did something wrong. So let's just try to correct this again. I'll just set that, it actually looks fine at 0. I think even, wait a minute, I think even this might be wrong, so let's go with 5000. That looks pretty good. Let's keep this instead. I'll reset the vibrance and the saturation, and I will synchronize my settings here. Sync settings, check all, synchronize. And now we're ready to open it for stacking in Photoshop. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to edit and merge to panorama in Photoshop. Now this is gonna take a little bit of time, but in the end Photoshop should open up and we'll get the photo merge dialog. So let's wait for that to happen. So here we go, this is photo merge. So you wanna keep it on auto for layout, and you wanna uncheck blend images together. What blending will do is try to make a panorama and mask the different parts of the images, so you don't only have one image for each pixel in the final composition. We want all of them because we will stack them and fix it on our own. So uncheck that one, click OK, let it do its thing. It's gonna take a couple minutes. So let's just lean back, have a cup of coffee, and see what happens. So now Photoshop is aligning all the layers. It's gonna take just a couple seconds here. Alright, so now it's done. You can see we have a weirdly skewed image here. That's because Photoshop has done the work of aligning the pictures for us. So what we need to do now is select all of our images, right click, and convert to a smart object. Again, this will take a minute, so just hang in there. Grab your trusty cup of coffee, do whatever you do. It's taking a while. Basically, this whole process will be going over the exact same steps as Ian Norman from Lonely Spec. I'll put a link to his channel down in the description. He's an awesome guy, taught me everything I know. So if you're having trouble following this, try taking a look at his tutorials. They're great. So yeah, let's get started. So we have our smart object here. What we want to do is we want to go into, I think it's layer, smart object, stack mode, and go to median. So what this will do is it'll take all of the pixels, and for each separate pixel it will take the median value for all these stacks that we have. So we have 35 different values for each pixel in the image, and it'll take the median value of that. That'll get rid of all the noise, and it'll basically just make sure that we don't have any crazy outliers. So let's just see what happens here. Oh, come on! Why is this taking so long? Alright, so now that we have our smart object stacked as median, you can go here and check out and see all the noise is gone. You can see how much of a difference that makes. It's pretty awesome. So let's just crop in and rotate this so we get what we need. So we go to edit, transform, edit, free transform, and we just rotate it like this. I think this is pretty good. Here we are. Alright, and then I want to crop in so we only have exactly what we need here. It's gonna take a bit of work, so what I like to do is just go from the bottom here, just select to the top right. There we go. And we're gonna go to crop, and the same thing over here. Just gonna crop this down. There we go. And over here, crop. And lastly, the bottom. There we go. Alright, so obviously we just threw away a bunch of pixels, but that's alright. This is where it can be beneficial to do some sort of panorama, but that gets kind of tricky with 35 exposures in 20 seconds. So I'm just gonna go with this one. This is still fine, we still have a lot of information here. So now we have our smart object here. We wanna duplicate this a couple times. So let's just see, I have a thing here in the way. There we go. And there we go. So now we have 3 of these. We're gonna rename this to color, and we're gonna rename this one to detail, and we're gonna rename this one to nebulosity. There we are. Alright, so for the color layer, let's disable these 2. There we go. So what we want to do here is get rid of most of the detail and just keep or retain the color information in the image. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a contrast curve, which is not a layer mask, obviously. So I'm going to add some curves here, and I'm going to just increase the contrast slightly. Something like this. And kill more of the blacks. There we are. So you can see here, our attempt to fix the ramp is not completely perfect, but it'll be fine for this demonstration. But see really here how the Milky Way here is coming into its own. So I think we're gonna go with something like this. That'll be fine. Just make sure you don't kill any of the highlights in here. You want to keep the details in the Andromeda Galaxy. If you have it in your exposure, I do. So I think this is pretty good. None of the highlights are blown out. It looks fine. So when we've done this, we want to go and add. The first thing we're going to do is convert this to another smart object. There we go. So now that we have that in the smart object, we're going to go into filter and noise and dust and scratches. So we're going to use this to blur out most of the image here. So as you can see here, if we turn this down, we are pretty much just ruining everything. So we're going to turn this up a little bit until we get rid of most of the stars here. So around 5, I think 5 is fine. There we are. And then we're going to increase the threshold until we get most of the detail back. And that should be around here, I think. This looks pretty good. So we still have the Andromeda Galaxy down here. We have the brightest stars in the image, and most of the others are gone. Here's all the color we need. Looks awesome. So let's go with this. Click OK. And here we go. So this is our color information. We can go ahead and hide this, and let's go to a details layer. So what we want to do here is we just want to have a black and white contrasty image of all of the highlights that we want to increase the luminance of in the color layer. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start by increasing the contrast by using a curve here. So let's go to curves, let's bring that down and bring this back up. Just want to roll them off up here like we did before. You can see just around something like this. Keep a little roll here. It's very contrasty. I don't know if that's too much. I think this might be pretty good. Something like this. Here we are. Alright. And then we're gonna convert this to a smart object again. Once that's done, we want to go into, if this stupid star bar can stop doing that, that would be great. Alright, we're going to go to black and white, and we're going to turn down the reds. You can see we have a lot of red in the nebula here, and we don't want to go too crazy on this. We'll bring this out in the nebulosity layer, but just don't go crazy. Keep some of it in there at least, so just keep it right around 29 or something. The yellows, we can kill those. Greens, kill those. Cyans, we should have a little bit of that, but as you can see here, that's mostly around the edges, and we don't actually want too much of that in the image, so just gonna turn that down. And the blues, mostly the background, some of the stars. We probably want to keep that fairly high, and the magenta will be a lot of our nebulosity. As you can see, it's kind of all over the place right here, so I think I'm just gonna go with like 143 or something like that. This seems pretty good. I'm gonna turn these a little bit more down. Just gonna increase the blues. This looks all right. Let's go with this. I'm just gonna do a final levels adjustment here, just to bring out the contrast a little more. I think this is looking better. Just around this. That looks pretty good. There we go. So we're gonna keep it like this. And just gonna convert this to another smart object. You'll see me doing this a lot. You can probably flatten it in between one of these steps. Haven't really played around too much with this. So I'm just gonna convert it to smart objects whenever I feel like it. So that's it for the color layer. Let's just rename these again, because now they got this different names. We don't want that. Actually, that was the detail layer, not the color layer. There we go. Now let's move on to the nebulosity. So this is basically the same process as it's a combination of the color and the details layer. You want to remove all the faint stars, and we want to make it black and white and have the contrasty parts be the nebula, the Milky Way nebulosity. So let's start by increasing the contrast like we did before. So let's go to curves and bring that down, bring this up, roll it off. This is dancing quite interestingly. Just roll it off here. Just a little bit so we don't kill it. This might be a little bit too much actually. Just here we go. This is better. There we are. Alright, so now we have more contrast here. That's great. And so we're gonna keep this as a smart object again. So let's go back here. Here we go, and you wanna go to noise, dust and scratches, and you wanna keep pretty much the same level of details that we did before. So this introduces too much noise in the image. You don't want to go this high. So I think maybe 5 is the perfect level for this actually. Let's just see. This looks pretty good. Yeah, let's keep it this. Boom. We want to clean up the noise we just generated, so we're gonna add a Gaussian blur here with around 2 pixels, just a little bit to just smooth out this. See all this green we have here. Just gonna smooth that out. Now the thing about it, we actually forgot to do that on the color layer, so let's just go back down and fix that. So let's go back here and go to blur, Gaussian blur. I think the 2 is fine. Maybe 1.5. Nah, 2 is fine. I'll go with 2. There we go. Alright, much better. Let's go back to the nebulosity. And again, we need to rename this just to keep the names. So there we go. And we want to convert this to black and white again. So this time we need to bring out the nebulosity here. This is what we want to be. This is what we want to have as white as possible, and we want to have the rest dark. So we already know that we have a lot of red inside of the nebula here. So I'm gonna kick this up a little bit. I'm gonna take the yellows down. I'm gonna take the greens down. The cyans, again, because it's in the corner, so we just want to hit the midpoint just like that. And the green doesn't seem to do much. The blue is mostly the stars, as you can see, so I want to keep that just right around here. And the magenta, I want to bring that up a little bit. I think the blue is good around there. Cyans. Here we go. So something like that. And let's go ahead and add a levels adjustment to this to see if we can get this to pop a little bit more here. Here we go. I think this looks pretty good. There we are. So let's go with this. Let's do another smart object. There we go. And we need to rename this again to nebulosity. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to take our details, this part, and we want to select it and we're going to copy it. Then we're going to go to the nebulosity again, and we're going to add a layer mask, and we're going to alt click it to get to the layer mask here, and we're going to paste in the details layer. Then what you want to do is go into Control I, which will invert the image, and we'll use that as a mask for the nebulosity. That'll subtract all the stars from the layer, which is what we want. So that is what that looks like. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna combine these two to a folder right there, and we're gonna have that blend with the luminosity. There we go. Now we have a more detailed image here. You can see we have some issues here. This looks kind of weird. So let's see where that is coming from. I think that might be, it's not the color layer, it's the, I'm not sure if it's the details layer either. No, it's the luminosity. We basically fucked this up a little bit, so let's just see if we can fix this. I'm gonna do that by, let's see here. See, this is just a layer mask. We can disable this so we're not getting confused here. Disable the layer mask. There we go. And let's see what we can do here. Sorry for all the noises I'm generating. So let's go to levels again and see if we can't get rid of these. They look kind of weird. We can't. We basically fucked this up already. So I'm probably gonna go around here. I think this is much better. Let's keep that and just make it apply to the layer below it and get that back. Now it looks like this instead. That is not a lot better. There, we missed the details. Here we go. So I think this is somewhat better. So what we can do is we can add another adjustment layer with vibrance, and we can turn this up. And all of a sudden this is gonna look really impressive, as you can see here. So this is our final image, pretty much. You can do additional processing in Lightroom, but this is our Milky Way shot. So this process is kind of hard to get right every time. I've only done this around 4 times or something, so you wanna try this a couple times until you get what you're looking for and find out what the different layers do to the image. You can see here that I kind of went too hard on the nebulosity layer, so I got a lot of weirdness here, and there's probably a way of smoothing this out. I haven't found a good way to do that yet, but play around with it, try it a bit. What I would do is check out Ian Norman. He's really great with this stuff. So yeah, let's bring it back to Lightroom and see what we can do. So to actually save this, because we have so many smart objects and layers in the image, it will fail because the max file size of a TIFF file is 4 gigabytes, and apparently this is more. So you want to go to File and Save As, and you want to check the TIFF. You want to deselect the layers down here. That's where most of the information and thereby the file size is coming from. So just uncheck that and hit save. Discard layers into the Macintosh is fine. No compression, and just hit OK. This should do it. And actually it seems like it saved it almost instantly. So let's hit it back in Lightroom. And somewhere here I should have the new image, but I don't, so I'm just gonna load it in. It's probably because I chose save as instead of just save. That's fine. This is an old composite I made from the same stack. This looks different, you can see. It's the exact same process, I just did it kind of differently. So let's go back, and I probably have to import this. Let's go to library, import. And it should be in here. There we go. So you just hit add, import, there we go. So you have it. Here we have it. Looks pretty cool. What you can do now is just kind of tweak it and get it to where you want it. Put down the highlights a little bit. You don't want to bring up the shadows, obviously. So you want to do something like this. Maybe increase the contrast a little bit. And I actually think I want to decrease it. See here, it looks pretty. This looks pretty good. Don't kill all of the shadows though. Let's just do a. Actually, no. Let's flatten this and let's do a simple S curve here. Just a little bit, not too much. Just want to bring on this a little bit. I like doing this, like fading the blacks out a little bit. So here we have it. This is our image, and what we can do after we've done all the processing, we can try to tweak the white balance a little bit afterwards to get something that's more suitable to our needs. I actually kind of like where it was at, so I think I'll just keep it there. I don't know if we need to tint it a little more. I think we might. See, this is obviously wrong. I think this is pretty good actually. Let's go with around that. And you have yourself a nice image of the Milky Way. So yeah, let's see what we can do to blend it into a picture of a foreground. So also you can see the nebula there. I think we actually killed the highlights a little bit. We should probably be aware of that next time. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling all over the place here. You probably want to be careful that you don't kill the highlights in the Andromeda Galaxy here. Just keep an eye on that when you're doing it. Alright, so I'm just gonna add this to my collection here. So I have this image. This is a museum that I took the other day. What I've done is to try to bring down the clouds here. You can see if I flatten this curve here, you can see there's some clouds here in the background, and we want to get rid of these so that the background is as uniform as possible. So I've done that with a kind of aggressive curve on the shadows here. So we'll take these two and we'll say edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. And then I want to have some height to work on here. So I'm gonna go to canvas size. Gonna change it upwards. Gonna make it quite tall. And I will align the stars here with the top of these buildings here. This is hard to see, but this is where, let's see if I zoom in, this is where the building stops there. So what I usually do is I take this guy and I take this part of the image and I do fill with color adaptation content aware. What that'll do is it'll try to create a background from the existing information in the image, and usually it'll work fine. I'll just give you more black, which is what we want in this case. So we wanna see if we can select most of this background, this black background here. You can see it got most of the roof here too, so we'll have to manually adjust for that. So I'm gonna go to my polygon lasso tool and I'll just tweak this selection that it made. Booyah. There we go. So now we have a fairly nice selection of the building here. So what I'm just gonna do is I'm gonna go Control-Shift-I. And I'm gonna go over to this guy. And I'm gonna add a layer mask there. And you see that'll automatically fill out the selection. So this is actually the opposite of what we want. So Control-I that again, and you can see it actually blends quite well now. So we can raise the opacity back up. You can see that's a little bit crazy, just doesn't fit totally, but we'll try to take care of that later. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna crop in on the image so we get a more realistic view of this. So here we go, and crop. And now it's starting to look like something. So if we zoom in, we can check if the details are like we want them to be. This looks pretty good. You see, this looks a little weird. Should probably do something about that. I'm just gonna go through this as quickly as I can because this is a lengthy process and there's a lot you can do to fix them. So I think I'm gonna go with this. This looks pretty good. I think I'm just gonna tweak this ever so slightly. I hit Control-U and just kind of darken this a little bit. Maybe raise the saturation. I don't know if I wanna do this too much. I actually think it's fine when it's at 0. So here we go. And there's our image. And we just wanna, you can see we have some fade going on here, and that's looking a little weird in this picture. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this. I'm gonna take the curves and I'm just gonna raise this ever so slightly and just apply to the Milky Way here, just to get it to look similar. And I'm gonna just adjust the curve here so you get something like this. That looks fairly similar. So yeah, let's go with this. Hit Control-S to save it. And when you open back up Lightroom, you'll have your image right there. So now you can do some final tweaking if you want to, and I usually do. So I just pull down the shadows a little bit. That's a little bit too much. Just ever so slightly. There we go. And might increase the highlights a little tiny bit. There we go. Just about there. And I'm going to decrease the contrast a bit. And that is our image. So I hope you learned something. I hope you get better at this than I am. I'm sorry if this was a little all over the place. It's very hard to do a tutorial, I found out. I haven't done this before, so it is what it is. But yeah, that's how you make a shot of the Milky Way and blend it with a foreground. So I'll see you in the next video.